Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a medical mystery that is, frankly, mind-boggling. Imagine taking a simple boat ride, but instead of the trip ending when you dock, that disorienting voyage becomes permanent. We're going to break down the data, the diagnostics, and the very real human impact behind this condition. Let's get right into it. So, think about that visceral feeling of having your sea legs. You know the one, right? You step off a boat, and for a few minutes, the ground still feels like it's bobbing. But what if, instead of fading away when you reach dry land, that swaying, rocking sensation became your permanent reality? It sounds absolutely wild, like something out of a sci-fi novel. But for a specific group of patients, this is their everyday reality. That brings us to Section 1, the Endless Ocean Voyage. The invisible condition we're looking at is called mal de débarquement syndrome, or MdDS for short. It's a rare neurological disorder where your brain is basically tricked into perceiving a constant state of self-motion. Patients are constantly feeling this relentless rocking, swaying, or bobbing, even when they're standing perfectly still on solid ground. It's literally the feeling of being on the water, but on land. Now, the onset of MdDS is usually triggered by prolonged exposure to passive movement. So we're talking about things like ocean voyages, long flights, or really long train rides. Normally, your body adapts to that passive movement and then adapts back when you stop. But with MdDS, the brain just fails to switch back once the ride is over. Moving on to Section 2, the Diagnostic Odyssey. To understand what this actually feels like, Polly Moyer's reflections really anchor this clinical issue in a human story. She highlights the, quote, profound professional and personal disruptions caused by diagnostic delays, dismissive medical encounters, and the marginalization of rare neurovestibular disorders. You see, patients aren't just fighting a physical sensation. They're fighting a healthcare system that frequently dismisses invisible illnesses. And the timeline of this diagnostic odyssey is just exhausting. Because the symptoms are invisible, patients hit massive roadblocks. At 1 month in, doctors often misattribute the symptoms to psychiatric issues. By 6 months, they might just get labeled with a functional neurological symptom disorder. And a whole year out, they're frequently incorrectly diagnosed with a conversion disorder. Imagine dealing with a very real physical, neurological reality, only to be constantly told it's all in your head. And to make matters worse, standard medical tests can actually do more harm than good. This whole ordeal often involves completely unnecessary diagnostic imaging. And here's the kicker. Because of the loud noises and confined spaces of machines like MRIs, these tests frequently exacerbate the patient's vestibular symptoms. So you mix that with a lack of validated treatments, and it's a recipe for profound frustration. Let's look at Section 3, the motion paradox. Okay, here is where it gets really bizarre. Patients actually experience a temporary alleviation of their rocking and swaying symptoms when they are re-exposed to passive motion. Yes, you heard that right. If you put an MdDS patient in a moving car or on a train, their symptoms actually go into temporary remission. Being in a moving vehicle literally makes them feel grounded again. But that relief is totally fleeting. The exact second that car stops and they disembark, there's this immediate, severe rebound spike in their symptom severity. The rocking and swaying come rushing back, often way worse than before the ride. So why does this matter? Well, clinicians actually rely heavily on this exact paradox as a crucial diagnostic indicator. It's the puzzle piece that distinguishes MdDS from other chronic dizziness issues. Doctors pair this history with standard oculomotor testing. If a patient has this motion paradox, but standard eye and balance tests show absolutely zero acute peripheral vestibulopathy, which basically means the physical inner ear looks completely fine, that's when clinicians can confidently start pointing toward MdDS. So what's actually happening inside the brain? Well, this rebound spike brilliantly illustrates a failure in the brain's complex central neuroplastic mechanisms. Specifically, it's a failure in velocity storage adaptation and habituation. Essentially, think of it like the brain's software for adapting to motion gets stuck. It's unable to habituate back to a zero-motion environment. It's a processing error in the central nervous system, not a structural problem in the ear. Next up, Section 4, beyond the physical imbalance. It's really important to grasp that MdDS isn't just about feeling off balance. Patients suffer heavily from severe secondary impacts. This continuous vestibular mismatch leads to profound exhaustion. I mean, imagine your brain constantly calculating motion that isn't actually happening. It would be incredibly draining. Patients also deal with significant cognitive impairment or brain fog, extreme light sensitivity, and very high rates of migraine comorbidities. The physical toll is just immense. And then there's the psychosocial impact. Because symptom flares are completely chronic and unpredictable, they severely compromise a person's entire life. This unpredictability destroys occupational stability, making holding down a job nearly impossible for some. It strips away their ability to function independently day to day and puts a massive strain on interpersonal relationships. It's truly a whole life disruption. Finally, Section 5, Advancing Clinical Support. So, how do we improve clinical outcomes? It requires a total shift in care frameworks. First off, the medical community absolutely must recognize patient expertise. We need to validate their lived experiences instead of dismissing them. We also need to integrate interdisciplinary research, establish robust support networks, and really foster clinician-researcher partnerships. This is how we transform a patient's isolation into active engagement. For clinicians who are exploring advanced assessment frameworks, there's a highly specific recommendation right now. Integrate the foundational principles drawn from the Werner's sensory integration method. This provides a structured, validated approach to untangling those complex sensory mismatches occurring in the MdDS brain. Furthermore, there needs to be a crucial operational shift. Clinicians have got to move past relying on high-level, generic symptom summaries. Instead, they need to examine each specific patient's presentation using comprehensive sensory reweighting evaluations. It requires a really tailored, individualized approach to understand exactly how each patient's brain is improperly weighing their sensory inputs. As we wrap up this explainer, we're left with a vital challenge. How can our medical systems evolve to better recognize, validate, and support those silently navigating the invisible, turbulent waters of rare neurovestibular conditions like MDS? The science is definitely evolving, but the compassion and structural support of our healthcare systems have to evolve right alongside it. It's definitely something for all of us to think about.